Today we're going to be doing what I think is going to be one of my favorite installs, and that is the Seems Legit Garage DCT aluminum pan. And I opted out for the bigger one just because I plan to track this car later on, and I just thought I'd drop the extra money right now and get the bigger one while I'm at it, instead of getting the smaller one and then wanting the bigger one later on. Let me tell you guys, I think this pan looks like a piece of art. Once you guys see it, you'll see the craftsmanship, and shout out to those guys at Seems Legit Garage. They're coming out with great products all the time, especially for the N54 cars, or all BMWs to say. Hopefully later on, I'm also going to be getting even more and more products for the Z4 to add on and show you guys, because there aren't very many videos of their products on the Z4. I don't think there are any at all, actually, to be honest. But I'll show you guys the items and everything that I have. So it's going to be a full DCT service included with that aluminum pan install. And the gasket's going to be opted out for that Vitron or Viton. I forget what it's called.
You know the thing.
Gasket. So it's going to be a different type of gasket. So slightly different process. Right now the car is still kind of just on the low profile front ramps because I just got done with the coilovers. Those have been adjusted. So what I'm going to be doing is I have these custom wooden blocks that I've built, 4 of them, just to get the car pretty high up in the air, and I can set the car on those. They're like little wooden blocks, and that'll help so I don't have to rely on jack stands, and it's a lot safer. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm going to jack up the front end, then the rear end, and then put it on those blocks. What can I say, guys? A piece of artwork right here. I opted out for the gold because I'm kind of doing a yellow accent on my blue Z4. So there are a bunch of parts that I'm going to be doing that add on to that yellow accent, and this is one of them. And I think I'm not going to reinstall the splash shield, so it'll kind of show, but we'll get to that later. So there's the pan, the gasket, hardware, filter. So there are 2 different filters that we're going to be switching out. I want to make sure that you guys know that with this Big Momma DCT pan from Seems Legit, it only comes with the gasket, hardware, and drain plug. So everything else you're going to have to buy separate. This I got from ECS Tuning along with this filter. So there are 2 different filters that you have to order separately. So this is one filter, and this is the other. Comes with the cap and this little aluminum ring that holds it in place, and then a fill plug. And I have 5 liters of DCT fluid, and that is Liqui-Moly dual clutch gear oil. So you can see it here. I actually have 2 more liters coming because it's going to require a little bit extra since the Big Momma is a lot bigger than the normal pan. And I'll show you guys that when we get to that part. So if you're doing the Big Momma, you have to have 2 extra liters. If you're doing the regular one, you might need about 1 extra liter. So be sure to check on that. All the details are on their website, the amount of fluid that each one will take. So up to you guys on which one you order, and that'll vary. To get a little more in depth on this, you can see the cooling fins that they added to help with airflow here. So you can see that right there. Their logo here. And then where the drain plug goes. And then I'll show you guys the other side too. I have it upside down because I don't want anything falling in here or any dust or anything like that. So here you can see the baffling for tracking the car. You can see how much deeper it is if you've seen the original pan. When I remove the original pan, I can also show you guys the difference, because I'm sure you guys will want to see that as well, a little more in depth. And then here's where the gasket goes. I was watching a video of them doing it, and apparently when they first came out with this pan, there was a little divot on this Viton gasket where they added RTV, but it looks like on their newest version, there really isn't a divot. So I don't think we're going to need the RTV on this gasket, which is great because I really didn't want to do that. So we can just pop this on. For us, we should be golden. No pun intended.
Got him!
A couple important tools that you will need that are uncommon. So you'll want to order these before you even start on this project. So I have these stubby hex sockets, and these are just a lot shorter than usual so that you can access that fill plug. These are Titan brand, and you can get these off Amazon for about $20 or so. You'll also want a thin socket head to also fit in that area. I also bought this transfer pump from Harbor Freight. It's pretty cheap. It's just $10. Just cleaning it is a pain because you're going to want to clean it before you use it for different fluid or if you're extracting fluid. It tells you on here which side is in and which side is out, and it has pretty long hoses. Let's move on to getting this car up in the air. The car is now up on the wooden blocks. So this is what I was talking about. Just because I know you guys have probably seen the quick jacks. I don't want to drop $2,000 at the moment, so I haven't gotten those yet. So what I have for now is I had a buddy build these wooden blocks just to get the car up higher, and it is a lot safer than jack stands. So that's what I have it on right now on all four corners. It does raise the car quite a bit, enough for me to work underneath without having to worry about the car falling on me. So I just wanted to show you guys that. That's a good idea for any of you that just don't have the extra money or don't want to spend the extra money on quick jacks or feel uneasy about jack stands. The only downside to these wooden blocks is that the wheels have to be on to get that extra added height. So you can't do this without the wheels, and sometimes you need to work on the car without the wheels on. So that is the downside of these. Enough of that. We'll get underneath the car and start taking off the splash shield of the current pan that's on there so that we can access the old pan and drain all the current fluid out. So as you can see, guys, I took out the drain plug there and all the fluid is coming out. I'm going to wait a bit longer. I'm going to try to let it drain out for a while. You can see the fluid there. It's actually pretty bad. This is 155,000 miles on the Z4. So you can see that BMW is definitely wrong on saying that this is a lifetime fluid. You definitely want to do a DCT service, regardless if you're upgrading to an aluminum pan or not. But I'm going to let this keep going. Then the next step is we're going to zip off all these bolts all around. You're going to want to be careful. This can make quite a big mess, so just be careful taking out those bolts. The next time I start filming, this pan will be off and we'll be comparing this old pan to the new one. The pan is now off, and I'm not going to get too much into detail, but just a quick comparison. You can see how much bigger this one is compared to the OEM plastic pan. And you can see this one obviously has cooling fans as well, just not as much as the big Momma here. And also baffling in the inside. You can just see the big difference between both of them. Again, more for track use. You can just get another plastic one if you want, or the same size. I think the small version of this one is still a little bit bigger, but not by much. You should still be able to fit the splash guard. Another thing to mention, if you guys are wondering about this magnet on the OEM pan, so if you're using another pan that requires a magnet just like this one, you can transfer it over, or it will come with a new one. For the Seems Legit Garage DCT pan, we won't need to transfer this magnet over because their drain plug acts as the magnets. So that's another key note. So you guys aren't wondering what to do with this magnet, just leave it in the OEM pan. We won't need it for the upgrade. Another quick tip for you guys as well. So you can see how shallow it is on this side and how much deeper it is on this side. A tip for taking this off is take off all the bolts besides the four corners. So once you get to the four corners, it'll start draining even more. So make sure that the two corners on the shallow side are still kind of almost threaded in all the way, enough for it to tilt a little bit so that
these two bolts are almost out, but all the oil's getting pushed out of the draining hole. That'll help a lot so you don't make as much of a mess or get oil all over yourself. Just a quick tip for y'all. Hopefully that makes it easier for you. So once you think that all the oil has drained out, then you can completely take out these bolts, and then these two corner bolts last. We're gonna go back underneath the car, take off the filter on the bottom and on the side and replace those. So not too difficult. Everything's going by pretty smooth. Okay, so we're going to be taking off this pickup right there, that yellow piece, and the bolt for that is this Allen over here, right there. You can see it. And then the main filter has a bolt right there that you can see, a Torx, and one on the other corner. Hopefully you guys can see over there. Yep, right there. There's the other bolt. So only two on the filter and one on the pickup. So we just got to take those bolts out, and then both of them will come out. I'll get those filters out of the way. After we do that, I also want to go ahead and take out the filter on the side here. You can see it right there. Here's the cover. We're going to go ahead and pinch this locking ring with a tool to get that out so that we can remove the cover, and then we can remove the filter as well. So all that's going to be done. We still haven't removed the fill plug quite yet. If you guys want to, you can remove the fill plug first out of everything, but the way that I did it worked out really well. It didn't take forever to drain because we were also unbolting the pan as we were draining the fluid. So I don't think that is such a big deal. Other people will say to remove the fill plug right away, but you guys can make your choice. I'll go ahead and get started removing all of these items that I just mentioned. So I got both of the filters replaced. They pull right out. Just make sure to pull evenly on both the filter and this pickup, because you don't want to break anything. And then just do everything backwards. So put the filter in first and then the pickup, and then both Torx bolts and the Allen bolt for this one that I showed you guys. And be very careful tightening the bolts, because you are tightening the bolt on plastic. So be very careful. Use one of the shorter ratchets if you have one, so you don't crack anything. I haven't gotten to removing this top filter over here because I want to try to get the pan on, just because I started on this late today. I didn't really run into any issues, but because I started on this project late tonight, I want to at least get the pan on. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up. Make sure that you keep the filter and the pickup as clean as possible while they're off of the car. So I put them somewhere where they wouldn't get very dirty while I was still trying to manage everything. Now that I have everything tightened up, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up and get the pan ready to be put on. Maybe use some brake cleaner to do some extra cleaning if you think that you got any contaminants in here at all. But let's get going on the pan. Alright boys, so I just put on the gasket here. Make sure you give it enough slack to go around the edges, but the gasket is on, so it is ready to be installed. I have the bolts over there, and what I think I'm going to do is, since it's an aluminum pan, and I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of blue Loctite, so just a dab on each bolt as I screw each one on, and then we're going to torque it down to spec. I just thought I'd mention that to you guys. It's up to you. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of blue Loctite. So I have the pan on. I just have 4 bolts in on each corner to hold it on. And I didn't tighten them all the way. I just hand tightened them just to kind of keep it moving and make sure that it's all aligned all the way around, because you definitely don't want to strip the threads at all and force any of these bolts in. I still haven't put blue Loctite on these as well. I'm going to do it on all the other ones and then take out the corner ones and then put blue Loctite. All the bolts are in on the pan, and they are all torqued to 10 Newton meters. And I made sure to also start at the corners and then kind of crisscross just like you would on a wheel, just to make sure that all the pressure is even. So now that those bolts are torqued, I also went ahead and removed the lock ring and the cover on the top filter there. You can see some oil spilled out of there as well. Give you guys a better look here with the light. You can see there. This is the tool that I used for the lock ring. So you got a 90-degree angle. On the lock ring, you have the two holes. You'll have to compress that lock ring and then kind of pop one side off and then use a flat head to just pry the rest off, just because it's really hard to grip it and take it out completely. I had the issue of where I would compress it and it would just pop off because, I mean, this isn't really that high quality of a tool. I just got this off of Harbor Freight, so if you're having issues, just use the flathead once you pop one side up to get the rest of the lock ring out. And then that cap will come completely off easily. And we have the replacement here. So underneath the car, I'm already ready to put both the filter and the cap in. So you can see here's the cap and the replacement lock ring. I'll get these opened up. Here's a closer look at the cap. Nothing too special. Same with the lock ring. And then this will only go one way. So as you know, the way that you took off the filter is the way that the new one's going to go in. You got this end that will go in first. And then this side will be on the outside. So I'll get that unpackaged, pop both of those in, and then get the lock ring back in. That's going to be a little tough to do, but we'll figure it out. We'll try to compress it and get that in. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It was definitely annoying. But once I got the filter in, you'll know that that side filter is in all the way when you hear a popping sound. So just make sure you listen for that sound and then you're all set. The cap, I pushed it in. It doesn't really have a certain way to go. You can spin it as much as you'd like. It just has to go in a certain depth for the lock ring to go on. So I just used this rubber mallet over here, a smaller one, and I pounded it in by hitting it on its side, which is kind of funny, but it worked that way. And it went in flush, and then I got the lock ring in with that tool that I showed you guys earlier. It definitely wasn't as hard as taking the lock ring off. It was a lot easier putting it on. So that's all set. Everything's pretty much done down here. Now it's the most important part, which is filling it with fluid. You have your fill plug right there. You can see the silver shining fill plug. I'll try to point to it right here. I'm trying to avoid taking off the heat shield because it is really a pain in the ass to get to. But you can see the fill plug right there. So we're going to remove that before we put the drain plug in to the new pan. And like I said earlier, you guys can remove the fill plug way before. I'm just doing it this way. The magnetic drain plug is in and tight now, so we can start filling the pan with fluid. We're gonna line 5 of these bottles up underneath the car, and I'm just gonna go one by one. I'm gonna leave 2 because remember guys, we gotta fill the transmission with the last 2 bottles while the transmission is in operating temperature. So we're going to wait on the last 2 bottles, but I'll go ahead and start this process. Guys, for a $10 transfer pump from Harbor Freight, this thing works super great. So I went through these bottles in like 5 seconds each with how fast this pump works. And you can see that the hoses are super long, so you don't actually have to be underneath the car. I went off to the side over here with more room. So it also made it a lot easier over here off to the side. And as you can see, I just have a little bit of oil dripping out. It just puddled down there. I probably should have put the pan over there, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to clean that up. But that was 5 of these bottles, so we still have 2 left. And you guys already know how we're going to put the remaining 2 in. So I'm going to clean all this up, get everything out of the way, and get ready for the final step. It is really noisy in here, but I have MHD up And I'm letting the car warm up to the transmission operating temperature, which is about 175 degrees. And I also still have to shift through all the gears so that the fluid circulates throughout the entire transmission. Then I'm going to use my pump again and go underneath the car and pump the 2 last quarts of transmission oil so that we top off the transmission. Well, boys, that's it. The transmission is done on the Z4, so I filled up the transmission with another 2 quarts like I told you guys before. As you can see here, MHD was really helpful with that because it helped me keep track of my temperatures, and I just cycled through the gears. While I'm up here, I just made sure to have my foot on the brake so the car didn't actually move. And you can see that nothing's leaking down there. You can see how much slower the pan, the Big Momma, hangs down. It's not too much, but it is a lot more than OEM. But you can see there's no leaks there. It took up all the extra oil. But that is it for the Z4.
Well, guys, that's it for this video. And I think this is the first Seems Legit Garage DCT pan upgrade on the Z4, especially on YouTube. Maybe not everywhere, but definitely on YouTube. So hopefully it helps any of you out with that transmission that want to upgrade pans. And it's pretty simple and straightforward, which was great. Just a little rough patches on the way, but nothing too crazy. If you have any questions, let me know down below, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.